I was banned from my own sister's wedding by my dad. The same wedding I helped pay for. Weeks earlier, I wired thousands to cover unexpected costs. Then 2 days before, he said my presence would ruin the atmosphere. My sister laughed and told me, "If you really want to be there, just watch the live stream." I swallowed hard. "Enjoy your day," I said. The next morning, my phone exploded with missed calls and frantic voicemails. But me, I was in a white robe at a mountain spa, coffee in hand, letting the steam lift every trace of them off my skin while the world finally went quiet. My name is Jet Maverick. I'm 30 from Seattle, and this is the day I stopped being a wallet and started being a person. If you've ever loved your family so hard you lost yourself, I think you'll understand me. Before I share my story, I want to know you are here with me. Just say listening in the comments or tell me where you are. I love hearing how far my story can reach. Sometimes even the smallest connection can make a story feel heard. Thank you. And now, here's my story. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me keep telling the stories some people would rather bury. And it reminds someone out there, they're not alone. Seattle's rain had a way of sounding personal, like it knew where to hit the glass, so it would echo in your bones. I stood in my small Capitol Hill apartment, waiting for the coffee machine to finish its cycle, the smell of dark roast curling into the room. My desk crammed against the window was a collage of open notebooks, crumpled sticky notes, and the ever-present laptop from my job at a South Lake Union startup. Beside the keyboard sat the mug I'd been holding for the past 5 minutes without realizing, white ceramic chipped at the rim, the faded words still visible, "Best Big Bro." Lila had given it to me 7 years ago when she was a sophomore in college and thought a $12 mug was a grand gesture. I ran my thumb over the letters. It was both comfort and mockery now. The rain blurred the view of Lake Washington, and beyond it, the dark silhouette of the Olympic Mountains. I tried to focus on the bug I'd been chasing since last night, but my mind, as it often did, drifted back 12 years. The fluorescent light in that hospital room was too bright for what was happening. My mother's hand was paper-thin, her grip surprisingly firm. "You have to look after Lila," she whispered. "She's still a kid." I was 18, my throat so tight I couldn't promise out loud. I nodded instead because anything I said would have cracked me in half. Out in the hallway, Wyatt, our father, stood with his arms folded, staring at a spot on the floor like he couldn't wait to be anywhere else. That day welded a chain around my neck. For the next 12 years, I'd drag it willingly. I paid for Lila's high school tuition, her college dorm fees, her art classes, her senior trip to Paris. I took extra shifts and late-night deployments. I passed on climbing trips with my friend Miles, skipped Nora's book club meetups, and built my life around making sure hers could be bigger, shinier. Wyatt only called when he needed money, for her never to ask about me. Lila's world had grown curated, Instagram perfect. Designer dresses, imported flowers. The kind of moments you can filter and caption with words like blessed and magical. And now the dream, a wedding in Maui. Her fiancé Easton came from an old Hawaiian family, the type that wore money like skin and believed image was the currency that mattered most. It was a cold February morning when my phone lit up with her FaceTime call. Her eyes sparkled as she flashed a diamond the size of a raindrop. "Maui Jet," she said breathlessly. "Beachfront Villa Sunset vows a yacht for the reception. You'll love it." Before she even finished, I'd transferred $25,000, half my savings, to lock down the villa, the photographer, the yacht. That night, I built a Pinterest board called Maui for Lila, bookmarked Hawaiian cultural etiquette guides, and pushed myself harder on runs through Gasworks Park as if stamina would matter at a wedding. Later that week, Wyatt's name appeared in my inbox. The subject line: "We need to talk about the guest list." I assumed it was about my speech or seating arrangements. I didn't know it was the first tremor before the ground gave way. The Monday it happened, the rain was back to its steady percussion on the glass wall of our office. South Lake Union was a blur outside. Inside, the startup buzzed with code reviews and the hiss of the espresso machine. I was elbows deep in debugging when Miles rolled over in his chair and asked, "Climb this weekend?" I shook my head. "Can't. Lila's wedding's coming up. Big family stuff." My phone buzzed. Lila. I stepped into a quiet corner, already smiling. Hey, she began, her tone oddly tentative but still carrying that confident lilt. So, there's been a change. Easton's family is keeping the guest list. Exclusive. Too many people, too little space. I waited for the part where she'd tell me she was joking. It didn't come. She hesitated, then added, "If you really want to be there, you can always watch the live stream." The words landed like a slap, wrapped in silk. I swallowed the acid rising in my throat and said evenly, "Hope you have a great day." I hung up before my voice could betray me. Minutes later, an email from Wyatt popped up. "For the sake of the family's image, I'm sure you understand." A text followed. "You're a good big brother. Don't make this a thing." I stared at my open spreadsheet of expenses, my eyes skimming over years of transactions, tuition trips, rent emergencies. My fingers tightened on the best Big Bro mug until I thought it might crack. Something gnawed at me, so I pulled up the wedding contract I'd saved. My name was still listed as the payer of record, but the primary contact field had been changed to Wyatt Maverick a week ago. I hadn't been told. That wasn't a clerical error, that was intent. They'd taken me off the wheel and kept me strapped to the engine. I set the mug down carefully. In my calendar, the $40,000 balance transfer was scheduled for later that month. The countdown clock next to it blinked like a dare. For the first time, I wondered if I'd actually go through with it. By late afternoon, the rain had deepened into the kind that seeps into your bones. I pushed open the heavy glass door of the downtown Seattle bank, my coat damp and my shoes squeaking on the polished floor. The teller looked up, all professional warmth, and asked what brought me in. "I'm here to cancel a scheduled transfer," I said, sliding my ID across the counter. She tapped at her keyboard, then frowned. $40,000, may I ask why? I met her eyes, my voice even. "I'm no longer invited to the event it was paying for." The explanation hung in the air, absurd and final. She nodded, processed the cancellation, and explained there'd be a penalty fee for stopping it this close to the date. I signed the form without flinching. Losing a few $100s was nothing compared to losing another piece of myself. That night, just after dinner, there was a knock at my apartment door. Wyatt. He didn't wait to be invited in, just stepped across the threshold, dripping rain onto my rug. His voice started sharp. "You're being selfish, Jet. This is your sister's wedding." When I didn't react, his tone shifted, the edge dulling to a plea. "She's only going to get one day like this. Don't make it about you." Then came the rationalizing, the old playbook. "You're a man, you can afford to be generous. Don't nickel and dime your own family." I opened the door again and stood aside. "You need to leave." My voice was steady, but the space between us was no longer just physical. After he was gone, my phone lit up with Lila's name. "You're ruining my day," her first message read. Then minutes later, "If you send the money, I'll tell them to invite you." I flipped the phone face down on the table and walked away. The urge to answer was there, but I knew whatever I typed would only be ammunition for someone else's narrative. Near midnight, a notification blinked from Sienna, Lila's closest friend. It was a screenshot from a group chat labeled Bride Squad. In it, I read every line twice. A vote had been taken weeks ago to keep me off the guest list. The stated reason: avoid middle-class drama, apparently a suggestion from Easton's family. My sister hadn't argued. The clarity was cold, and in its chill, I felt the weight lift. I opened my laptop and booked 3 nights at a spa in Snoqualmie. Texted Miles Climb this week, marked myself as going to Nora's next book club meeting. Then I reached up, took down the framed family photo from my wall, and set the best Big Bro mug upside down on the shelf. Before bed, an email arrived from the wedding planner. Without the remaining $40,000, the villa, the yacht, and the photographer had been released. The primary contact listed for the account, Wyatt, had already been notified. I shut my laptop. I was curious to see how they'd spin this one. The next morning, the light coming through my blinds was the pale, reluctant kind Seattle specialized in. My kitchen counter was cluttered with bank papers and unpaid bills I'd been meaning to file. As the coffee dripped into the pot, I skimmed my inbox and found the formal notice from the wedding planner: all services canceled due to non-payment. I ignored the first call from Lila, then the second. When the third came, I silenced the phone and set it on the counter. Wyatt left a voicemail instead, his voice a mix of outrage and performative injury. Do you realize what you've done? You've humiliated us in front of Easton's family. They'd already lined up coverage in the Maui press. Do you understand what that means? The more he spoke, the clearer it became. This was never just about a wedding. This was about optics. I wasn't a brother anymore. I was a funding source for a production they wanted to headline. By midday, a new name appeared in my inbox, Chester Easton. His message was short, formal, and laced with a kind of polite menace. He accused me of breaching a support agreement and described my decision as deliberate sabotage. Attached was a scanned letter from his attorney suggesting I could be liable for reputational damages unless I restored the payment immediately. I closed the email without replying and headed to Pike Place Market where I'd asked Sienna to meet me. The air smelled of coffee and salt water, the stalls bright with flowers. She arrived wearing a raincoat too thin for the weather, her eyes scanning for eavesdroppers before she spoke. "Jet, you need to know something," she said quietly. "Wyatt used some of the money you sent earlier this year to cover one of his own debts, a business thing that went bad." I felt my jaw tighten. That money had been meant for Lila's deposits, her dream vendors. Now I knew why the numbers had never quite added up. Back home, I drafted a reply to Chester Easton. I copied every party involved and attached the original contract's clear proof that I was the sole payer and that my obligations ended the moment I was removed from the guest list. My wording was measured clinical, every point backed by documentation. I wanted them to see that intimidation would get them nothing. Before we parted ways at Pike Place, Sienna leaned in her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't think Lila knows about the loan Wyatt took. But if she finds out, she's going to put the blame on you. Just be ready." Outside, the rain came in sheets drumming on the awning as I stepped into the street. The city seemed grayer than usual, the air heavier. But beneath it all, I felt something else stirring, a sharpness I hadn't allowed myself in years. This wasn't the end of the fight. It was the start. By Wednesday morning, the week had already felt twice its length. I was at my desk in the open plan office, half listening to the low hum of conversation while debugging a stubborn block of code. Then a fragment of someone's chatter cut through the noise. "Isn't that his sister?" I glanced up. 2 desks over a pair of developers were huddled over a phone screen. One of them noticed me, eyes widening slightly, and the conversation broke apart. Miles slid into the empty chair beside mine without preamble, pushing his laptop aside. "You've seen it?" he asked, tapping his phone until a Facebook post filled the screen. There it was, Wyatt's profile photo, smiling beside a heartfelt paragraph written in the tone of a wounded patriarch. It told a story about a son who deliberately sabotaged his sister's special day out of jealousy and withdrew his support when she needed him most. Underneath, an old photo of Lila and me, maybe 8 and 6 years old, wearing matching raincoats, standing in the yard of our first house. The caption framed me as the selfish older brother who couldn't stand to see his sister happy. The likes and comments were already in the hundreds. Miles tilted his head, waiting for my explanation. I kept my voice neutral. Family stuff. But inside, the shame prickled hot. Not because any of it was true, but because every person scrolling by would now have an image of me crafted from half-truths and outright lies. I didn't delete my own account or respond. That would have been stepping into their arena. By mid-afternoon, the restraint was slipping. I called Lila directly. She picked up on the second ring, her voice tight. "I saw Dad's post," I said. I know, she answered, almost defensive. "He's just telling people what happened." "What happened," I said slowly, "is you and your fiancé uninvited me after I'd already paid for half your wedding." She didn't miss a beat. "You always think you know what's best for me, Jet. But you don't. You just want to control everything." Her words landed heavier than I expected because they weren't borrowed from anyone else, they were hers. Somewhere along the line, she'd convinced herself I owed her something from a promise I barely remembered making years ago. That evening, Miles invited me for a run at Gasworks Park. We jogged along the winding paths, the city skyline fractured by the mist over Lake Union. Halfway through, he slowed to a walk. "Wyatt called me," he said. I stopped. "He what?" "Yeah. Said you were being stubborn. Asked me to talk to you, see if I could get you to reconsider. I didn't know what to say. Wyatt had never once spoken to Miles in all the years we'd been friends. The fact that he was willing to reach out now told me he'd use anyone anywhere to box me in. Later that night, a text came from Sienna. Rumor is they're moving the wedding to a relative's backyard in Tacoma. Still telling the press it's happening in Maui. I filed it away. The lie was sloppy, and sloppy lies tended to unravel. At the park, I stood on the damp grass as the wind carried a light drizzle off the lake. The city lights glowed against the low clouds. Somewhere between the sting of betrayal and the relief of clarity, I realized every mask had finally fallen. If they wanted to paint me as the villain, then fine. I'd let them see what the real version of that looked like, one built on facts, not fabrications. Thursday morning began with the receptionist dropping an envelope onto my desk. The front was marked urgent in Wyatt's handwriting. Inside was a letter 3 pages long in his looping cursive. It recapped every version of the story he'd been telling, ending with a single line in bold. "You will have to live with this shame for the rest of your life." I kept my face neutral, but I could feel my coworker's curiosity prickling in the air. I slid the papers into my desk drawer and went back to my screen. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a call from a number I barely recognized. "Jet, it's Marlene. Your mother's cousin," the voice said, warm but edged with urgency. "I thought you should know Wyatt's been calling every branch of the family, telling them you betrayed Lila. He's trying to get people to stop speaking to you." She hesitated, then added, "And I heard from someone who used to work for the Eastons. They've been having money problems. This whole big wedding, it's about saving face, showing everyone they're still on top." By lunchtime, the day took another turn. My desk phone rang again. This time it was the front desk. "There's a Mr. Wyatt here to see you." I didn't even get up. "Please let him know I'm not available," I said. A few minutes later, our building's security lead walked by my desk, eyebrow raised. We escorted him out. He wasn't happy. Word spread quickly. In an office like ours, a parent showing up unannounced was just another form of spectacle. That night, as I was shutting down my laptop, an email notification slid across my screen. From Leilani Easton. She introduced herself as the groom's cousin and apologized for her family's behavior. "For what it's worth," she wrote, "it wasn't Lila's idea to cut you out. Chester pushed for it. He said you didn't fit the image they wanted for the guest list. I think it's wrong, and I'll say so if you ever need me to." I read the message twice before saving it to a folder with everything else I'd been collecting. By the time I went to bed, I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was building a record, each lie, each overstep, each witness. And somewhere between the pages of that day's notes, I knew I was getting close to the point where this wouldn't just be about defense. It would be about taking the next move myself. The air in Pike Place Market carried the mingled scents of roasted coffee and the salty breeze off Elliott Bay. I sat at a corner table in a quiet cafe, steam rising from my cup, when Sienna slid into the seat across from me. She didn't bother with small talk, just reached into her bag and set a small silver USB on the table. "This," she said, "is from a friend who was in the room." I turned it over in my fingers. "What's on it?" "A meeting between your dad and Chester Easton. You'll want to hear it." Back at my apartment, I plugged it in. Before I even pressed play, I opened my bank's online portal and scrolled back to the payment I'd made for the wedding. The $5,000 deposit was supposed to go directly to the Maui resort. Instead, 2 days after I'd sent it, there was a transfer, same amount, into Wyatt's business account. Not a shared account, not an event vendor, but the LLC he used for his side ventures. I clicked on the audio file. The hum of voices gave way to Chester's deep, measured tone. "Culturally, he doesn't fit the image we want for this wedding. He's just another tech guy, nothing that elevates the brand of this family." Then Wyatt's voice, calm and transactional. "As long as the money shows up on time, his presence doesn't matter." I listened twice the second time, jotting down timestamps. There was no anger in their voices, only calculation. It was the ease of it that stung the most. That night, I sat at my desk and drafted a post for my personal page. No theatrics, no insults, just a clear account of what happened, supported by screenshots of the contract, the bank transfer, and a short clip from the recording with the speakers unidentified. I wrote that my intention had always been to support my sister, but not at the expense of being erased from her life. Within hours, it was being shared far beyond my own network. Comments poured in from people I hadn't spoken to in years, strangers from Seattle, even some from Hawaii, all questioning the version of events Wyatt had been selling. By morning, Wyatt had responded with a shaky, hastily filmed video. He called my post a smear campaign, claimed I'd taken everything out of context, but as he spoke, his phone screen lit up with a preview of an email. In the corner of the frame, viewers caught a line from Chester: "Keep the loan from Jet quiet until after the ceremony." The internet didn't miss it. Screenshots spread faster than the video itself. The more Wyatt tried to defend himself, the more the details slipped out of his control. For the first time since this began, I could feel the tide shifting. Messages from people I didn't even know came in, some offering solidarity, others telling me they'd canceled their flights to Maui. A reporter from a Honolulu paper left a voicemail asking for an interview. The story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to the truth. The morning the wedding was supposed to happen in Maui, I was nowhere near an island. Instead, I was submerged to my shoulders in the warm mineral water at the Snoqualmie Spa Mountains, rising like silent sentinels outside the window. My phone sat face down on a towel. Eventually, I reached for it. The lock screen was a wall of notifications. At the top was a text from Sienna. They went to the villa and found nothing, no flowers, no catering, no staff. Everything's canceled. Non-payment. I scrolled further. An email from Leilani Chester stormed out this morning. Said he's done spending a dime on this circus. Blamed your dad and Lila for the whole disaster. I leaned back, letting the steam rise around me. The clink of glass echoed in the quiet room, and for a moment the drama felt far away. Then my phone rang. Lila's name flashed on the screen. I answered. Her voice was unsteady, thin. "Jet, I was wrong. Please, I need you to help me fix this. I can't let everyone see me like this." I let the silence stretch, the sound of water lapping softly against the edge of the pool. "I'm busy," I said finally. She started to speak again, but I ended the call. Kaylani, the attendant who'd been refilling my tea earlier, glanced over with a small smile. "First time you've put yourself first," I returned the smile and nodded. That evening, the headlines were already changing tone. What was once billed as a glamorous Hawaiian wedding had been reduced to a small backyard gathering in Tacoma. Folding chairs on patchy grass, a buffet of foil-covered casserole dishes. Photos leaked online before the cake was even cut. I wasn't there. And for the first time in months, that absence didn't feel like a loss. It felt like release. The morning after what people were now calling the backyard wedding in Tacoma was unusually clear for Seattle. Sunlight spilled through my apartment's bare wall, where the family photo used to hang the lone nail, a small scar of what had been there before. I set my best Big Bro mug on the counter without the tremor that had once betrayed me. Opened my laptop and typed a short list, finalized the evidence file. Send official letters to all parties involved. Post one brief public statement to close this chapter. I wasn't angry, just resolved. By mid-morning, I had crafted the legal portion. Each letter, both emailed and sent certified mail, summarized the payment timeline, the changes in conditions, and my removal from the guest list. I attached bank statements, the partial audio recording, and Leilani's written account. My only request was that all accusations of sabotage be withdrawn, that they stop contacting my workplace, and that they publicly acknowledge I no longer had any financial obligations. The language was cool, precise, not a single insult. When the last envelope was sealed, I felt the same release as closing a complex work project that had taken months to untangle. That afternoon, I met Miles and Nora at a table near the window at Pike Place Market, the sound of gulls and the salt tang drifting in from the sound. I read them my draft statement, 4 sentences each, deliberate. I would say I loved my family but wouldn't be used. I had supported them in good faith, but once I was excluded, I stopped. All relevant information had been shared with the necessary parties, and finally I would not comment further. Miles nodded. The calm is the power. Nora smiled faintly. Make it clear you're not asking for sides. You're closing a door. The call from Wyatt came the next day while I was standing in Gasworks Park, the wind lifting off the lake. "You've won," he said, voice hoarse. "No one wins," I replied. I'm just keeping my share. He hesitated before admitting he'd used my $5,000 to patch a personal shortfall, planning to put it back after the wedding. I'm not asking for it back, I said. I just want respect. If that's not possible, we have nothing to talk about. He stayed silent. I ended the call with, "When you're ready to talk as two adults, I'll listen." Later, Lila called from somewhere quiet. "I'm mad at you," she said softly. "But I'm more scared of not having you at all." "You've had me for 12 years, I answered. "That's enough to stand on your own. Start by seeing me as a person, not a wallet." After a long pause, she confessed she'd known about the group chat and stayed silent to protect her wedding dream. I told her dreams needed a foundation of respect. We agreed on one rule: no more financial requests. We could talk about anything else, books, weather, cooking, but not money. The Eastons sent a formal reply withdrawing their demands and blaming misunderstandings. Wyatt quietly deleted his accusatory posts. Leilani bowed out of the wedding entirely and went home to Hawaii. Sienna sent a short message. "Thanks for setting a boundary instead of swinging back." That night I drove to Snoqualmie, slipped into the hot springs, and let the scent of wet pine fill my lungs. Steam rose into the starlit sky. I'm not saving anyone anymore, I thought. I'm saving myself and whatever good is left of us if they want it. Autumn in Seattle is crisp and gold-edged. On a clear morning at Gasworks Park, I jogged alongside Miles, our breath visible in the cold. We planned a winter trek, and I told him, "This time I won't cancel for family emergencies." I meant it. My life had settled into a steady pattern. At work, I kept my on-call schedule tight and declined anything outside my scope. My code was cleaner, my sleep was full. Twice a month I joined Nora's book club, and one evening I shared my experience of learning to say no without naming anyone. On Tuesdays, I took a community cooking class. One night, stirring chicken ginger soup my mother had once taught me, I realized care doesn't have to mean self-erasure. One by one, the people in my orbit found their own paths. Lila sent a late thank you card, handwriting shaky. She'd started repaying her own loans from her new job and wanted to learn the soup recipe. I invited her to class, telling her, "This time I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to." Wyatt never apologized, but sent a short email. "Hope you're well." My reply was just as short: "I am. When you're ready for an honest conversation, I'll be here." Sienna had switched jobs and wrote, "I'm learning to say no." I told her freedom starts with one refusal. Leilani sent a photo of the Hawaiian coast with the words, "Truth is the only foundation." At home, I redefined what stayed and what didn't. The Best Big Bro mug sat upright in the cabinet used in the mornings, but now as a reminder of boundaries. The family photo never went back up. In its place, a framed shot of the Olympic Mountains from my trek with Miles. One late afternoon at Pike Place, I met Nora, Miles, and Lila. She brought a box of pastries and said I paid for these myself. No one mentioned Maui. We laughed about my failed attempt at risotto, and for once her presence felt light. That night I returned alone to the Snoqualmie Springs. Steam curled around me, stars glittered overhead. I kept my promise to Mom, I thought. I helped Lila until she could stand alone. The rest I give back to her and to him. I wasn't a wallet. I was a person. And when love is rooted in respect, it can go the distance. The lake's surface reflected the stars without distortion, a mirror for a life with boundaries warm and finally at peace.